So we have our customers, we know who they are. Now the question is, how do we now go from definition to more precise specification of who they are and into the insight we need to create value for them? And what we want to go after are an understanding of needs. And needs are subjective, to some extent situation specific. They are vary between customers, but also over what they are doing or what context they are in. So one good way to start is to have a very open-minded approach and go into observe, study, talking, interacting, and so on. I mean, we might have a case where our idea for a new product starts with a solution or a function or maybe even an activity or a process. But we always have to go into all the domains to create value, and we need to fit it with the customer problems and customer jobs, customers' emotional settings and how to improve those. So we need to study to understand in what way does this customer work. And one way to just capture and organize all this information and ask at least a minimum of questions so we get a fairly full picture is to use the customer empathy map. And as often is the case with very nice canvases, it's a categorization scheme. So what does he or she think or feel? What does he or she see? What do they hear? What they say or do, right? Then you get into something that is framed and where you can start to think about what are actually happening, what could be the pains and gains, and what needs do they have. And then needs to be studied, verified, expanded, refined, so we get a facts-based baseline for our needs analysis. So yeah, here are some things. Then you want to go over then from this documentation of a lot of things. Let's say put post-its here and so on, and have statements from the customers, things you observed. And then you want to translate that into pains and gains in the case of this model. So where do we get the information to do all this? So as I said, usually you go into a deeper study and interviews and observations, maybe even try to participate in what the customer is doing. So that be like a creative customer analysis. But you can also get data from the past, like preference patterns, how different order choices look over history. Do they opt for the bigger capacity Novus bike or the smaller one? Where is it going? And what are the complaints? And then you can look also on trends. Maybe there's a trend. The trend is a pattern in data, but we try to reason about where it's going in the future. So maybe there's a trend that more students live off campus because it's tricky to find housing and more people study at universities. The increase in the student volume is faster than the increase in student housing, maybe. Okay, so that's interesting information. Maybe the purchasing power of students is going up or down, etc. So that would be trend information. So we can look at the study of the customer, but we can also look at things that are connected to it, data that we can put into the system. Okay, so what goes into the bucket, let's say? What is some statements you want to have in this domain? So first of all, needs and resource concerns are qualitative things. It's information that usually is not quantitatively expressed. It should be short statements, but it should not be about solutions, like mini USB port for the phone. It's better to ask about connection. What would be good connection? Why would you have such a connection? And if it's easily measured, it's about performance levels, not so much maybe about why that aspect of performance is actually needed. So there's also a little bit of a warning sign. And it should have a clear direction or preference. It needs to capture what is something the customer wants to achieve and a direction of preference. is also interesting. Because if you make a phone, it's really important to know if they want a bigger screen or a smaller screen. And they might say they want to watch movies or they want it to fit in the pocket and so on. So it might not be by saying, let's decide the size of the screen. It's more of understanding things that they try to do. So maybe things like this: nice touch and feel, attractive look, long time between recharges, clear image in true colors on the screen. These would be good need statements that you can put in the bucket of useful information from this domain. And if you still have the customer there, you can ask follow-up questions if they say other things. So what is then a need here? Let's have this customer statement. I need a powerful car. Number 2 is I need to get from home to work as fast as possible. And the last one is I must not be late. So what is this statement, the first one? If they say I need a powerful car, they're talking about a solution, right? A technical system that might be useful for them. If they talk about I need to get from home to work as fast as possible, that's a function that the car has for them. But why do you want that? I must not be late. So something related to the job that this person has and the responsibilities creates a high pressure and a high need for timekeeping. Okay, so that's the need. Maybe it's not the car that you need a jetpack. But just because they say it's a need, it doesn't mean that it is a need. If you don't separate, if you're not having a sensitivity to what kind of information you get, or we shouldn't infer it just from what they say. We should go deeper and find more things out from the customer. So strict discipline is very important. So you capture things that are useful. It's often you do a lot of this in the beginning of the project. So it's front loaded. The traditional way of doing projects in many technology-based companies is that they have fallen in love with their solutions and processes. And then they work for 2 years and they go out, they remove all the bugs and they go out to customers and say, here's the new software, you can try it. And they say, we don't need that. We do that by hand because it's such an easy problem to solve. One way of processing and organizing a lot of data, especially that there are many individual data points from qualitative analysis, is the affinity diagram. It lends itself pretty well to need analysis of customers. And you can first of all use different colors if you work with post-its, like in this case. And then one of these big white sheets could be one of the fields, like what they hear, what they think, feel, etc. But at some point, you want them to build structures. So you put things that are about the stressed moms at airports. Let's say you interviewed and observed those. So you put things that are about timekeeping and consequences of not keeping time, and that will be part of problems. And how does that make them feel? What is the consequences? What can worsen the problem? What can improve the problem, and so on? And statements that mean the same thing, like I'm always so stressed when I travel in the morning. Morning traffic is much more difficult. And so you put these together, they mean the same, have the same implication, and then you will find that these different little bundles form a structure of like a problem structure that you can then start to work on more specifically. And then we can move that into tables, maybe for further data collection. Which are the most important? Which of these jobs represents most value for the customer? Which ones are more side issues? If we solve this shortage of time in the morning, maybe some other things would go away. Not having time to eat before you get on the plane, for example. All right, so you don't have the problem of food on the plane. Yeah, so there's connections here. And you can define a sequence to work through, but I think it's good to be open-minded because our views get enriched when we don't think we have the answer, but really goes out there and study without preconceptions. So yeah, find a lot of data points, indications of what goes on and organize that, cluster, connect it in hierarchies and structures. I think that's much more useful, and maybe you find out more than you need to develop a certain product or service, but you can save that insight and use it for other innovation projects later. So from this we can go on and be more concrete on value and see how we can work the 6 value drivers.